The Big 12 just hilariously stuffed Memphis into a locker. But should they have done that?
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Baylor fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. We start with some Big 12 news today. We're going to talk about how the conference just outright denied Memphis. Like, come up with all the money you want, Memphis, but you're not coming to play in this conference. Let's rethink that. Should that have been what Brett Yormark did? What could Memphis bring to this conference, and why did they come to this conclusion? Plus, we'll take a look at a lot of basketball for our boys overseas. And by that, I mean Baylor basketball playing in Germany, who stepped up again for this team. Another person I might have been wrong about. And then we'll look at who's going to be the scorer, who's going to be the top scorer for the Bears this year. Always something great to look at in July. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. We start where we start. Memphis, Big 12, no thanks. Brett Yormark said, thanks, but no thanks. We'll pass. Big time news coming out of Yahoo Sports, Ross Dellinger, saying that Memphis planned to give anywhere between $150 and $200 million to come and become a new member of the Big 12 Conference. And Brett Yormark said no. Said we can do without that. And it's hilarious, okay? Like, let's just take stock for where we're at right now. 2 years ago, we thought this conference was dead, and now they're saying no to teams that have played in New Year's Six bowl games. Just nope. We're good. It's funny. It definitely is funny. I know the Houston fans are certainly taking a victory lap on this one. Their American brethren in the Memphis Tigers. But this kind of got me thinking right away, like, should they have said no to Memphis? In some ways, would I rather have Memphis than Cincinnati or UCF? In some ways. But why? Why did they say no to Memphis? When Memphis is going to lay out this lucrative offer. Okay, because this is coming straight from the Yahoo Sports story from Ross Dellinger. Memphis's proposal is described as a no-risk concept, according to some in the Big 12, and it also sets a standard, perhaps, of expansion fees to enter a league. The school would take zero distribution for the final 5 years of the league's new television deal with ESPN and Fox. Add the sponsorships in excess of $150 million over 5 years and subject itself to expulsion after the 2030-31 season if the Big 12 deems it is not adding value. That, of course, comes with their next TV contract. So they've laid it out there. And I think it's funny that some of the Memphis people, some of the SMU people are laughing at it, because SMU obviously decided they weren't going to give you sponsorships, but they just weren't going to take money for a long time. And in a lot of ways, Memphis sweetened the pot. They gave a better deal than what SMU was giving to the ACC, and the Big 12 still said no. Why did they say no? I'm seeing a lot of conspiracy theories in the comment sections of these, but I think it's pretty simple. Let's be honest. It's pretty simple. First off, you don't get consistent football success from Memphis. They've had their ups for sure. You know, they played in the Cotton Bowl a few years ago. I want to say that was the 2019 season, the year that Baylor went to the Sugar Bowl the first time. So they bring some high end in terms of the ups. They're probably just as good, if not better, than some of the football programs in this conference, including a school like Cincinnati. But they're okay. Basketball, they bring you a lot more headaches than conference championships. Because let's break this down here. Memphis itself, the city of Memphis, is one of, bar none, the most dangerous in America. Okay? You got to take these things into account when you're adding a school into your conference. Like, you just do. Orlando has its troubles for sure. But that is something that you have to take into account when you're adding a member school. It's not just, oh, they're good at football. It's, we've got to send our student athletes there. We got to hold events there. It's a lot of different things. And Memphis, while kind of fits in geographically, I mean, what doesn't fit in geographically to a conference at this point, is not a tourist destination. It's not a great place to go and visit. And you do need to take that into account when you're talking about, your cross country team going there, your water polo team going there, whatever it may be. And I know there are people in the comments who say, oh, Waco is this, Waco is that. Yeah, it's not Memphis. Okay. Memphis has some real problems. Speaking of real problems, how about this conference that prides itself as being the best basketball conference in America? This one that Brett Yormark says we're going to continue to be the best, and we're going to show you that you could survive in major college athletics by being a great basketball conference. What is enticing you to bring in Penny Hardaway here? Okay, because just this past week, they had their third major violation in 3 years from Penny Hardaway. This again, coming from Yahoo Sports. The NCAA has sent out a penalty to head coach Penny Hardaway in Memphis basketball for academic fraud, which includes a 2-year probation. 2-year probation plus a fine for academic fraud because the Memphis softball players were taking tests for the Memphis basketball players. And just buried there at the bottom of the story, this is not the first time that Hardaway has had problems with the NCAA. Remember in 2023, he was suspended 3 games for 2 in-home visits that were not allowed with a recruit. They also had the big mishandling of the James Wiseman situation. Charged the program with committing 4 level 2 violations and 5 level 3 violations because of the James Wiseman thing and his eligibility. Like, this is not a program that you want to bring into your conference. If Memphis basketball were a person, it would be that kid when you were growing up that was nice enough, but got into enough trouble that your parents said, you know what, you're not hanging out there anymore. We're just not doing it. That's what Memphis basketball is. We'll schedule you. Baylor's scheduling you 4 years, but we're not bringing you in here. We're not dealing with that headache. We're not letting you drag our conference through the mud. Do whatever you want with the American. Win a conference championship with all these violations. Don't even go to the tournament the next couple of years. But we're not dealing with this. So it's actually pretty simple why the Big 12 didn't want Memphis. It's a headache. It's a headache they don't need. They don't need any more teams. By the way, 16 is a lot. And that's not sweetening the pot enough. And one Big 12 official, according to the Ross Dellinger story, said, yep, we looked at them when we added Cincinnati and UCF and all these other schools a couple years ago. We looked at them then. We said, no, nothing's changed. In fact, they're getting more violations. So in a lot of ways, Memphis does kind of fit the bill. It's a decent-sized school. They draw fans in terms of, basketball anyway. It's not, I wouldn't call it one of the great fan bases in America, but it is major city. It's a pro sports town. But the juice is not worth the squeeze when it comes to Memphis. It's way more headaches than glory. And before anyone says, yeah, I have been to Memphis a couple of times, it's not worth the squeeze, man. It is not worth that headache that's going to come to you. You've already got the best basketball conference in America. Why are you adding a team that's pretty much only good in that and has all those headaches attached to it? No, thank you. You're the Americans' problem, not ours. We would rather take Gonzaga. We would rather take UConn. And as evidenced by who's in the conference, we'd rather take Cincinnati. It's not worth it. So let's just go back to how funny it is that the Big 12 just absolutely put Memphis in a locker. No, thanks. You could take your $200 million in FedEx money and shove it. We don't want it. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Or if you're listening to us wherever you get your podcast, tweet at us at Locked On Baylor. What do you want Memphis here? Does anybody want Memphis here? Why or why not? Let us know in the comment section below. Be sure to like, subscribe, find us on YouTube, of course, and wherever you find your podcasts as well. We're not done yet. Locked On Baylor rolls on. We've got to talk about them. Our boys overseas doing the Lord's work, playing a nice amateur college basketball tournament in Germany. Let's talk about who's standing out and who I also, after yesterday's show, have to go again and say who I might have also been wrong about. That is coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode of Locked On Baylor is brought to you by Game Time. I got to see my favorite team, the Boston Red Sox, in an iconic ballpark, Fenway Park, the other day. Or excuse me, not that one, the second most iconic, Wrigley Field, the other day because of Game Time. It was one of those where I was like, I'm not missing this. I know you've been there before. Decide last minute, you're like, I don't want to watch this on TV. I want to go to the game. Game Time's the only way to do it, man. The money you save on tickets, you can splurge on the food, the drinks, the merch, even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time's the one that makes it possible. They make buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Y'all, I go to a lot of games. I never buy tickets before the day of anymore because of how good Game Time is. It's the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB and the Locked On Podcast Network. You can see the exclusive zone deals that they've got for all the games that you're looking to go to and really kind of anything that needs a ticket. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, and that, of course, is guaranteed. Let's take you back overseas. Let's take you back to Europe. Baylor in this, what is it? The FISU World University Games. I just wanted to make sure I had the acronym right. The FISU, which is obviously for Iowa fans that don't like Iowa State. They say FISU. World University Games. Baylor wins again, undefeated in pool play. They win by 20 over Team Romania. And it kind of, these box scores have kind of shut me up for just a little bit. Remember yesterday's show, I talked about Cam Carr, and I wasn't skeptical of Cam Carr. I just didn't factor him in, and I should have. I'm a big Cam Carr fan. He's got a good first name, but more importantly, he is a heck of a basketball player. But the guy, probably the one guy that I've been super critical of in this transfer portal, transfer portal renaissance, complete transfer portal rebuild that Baylor's gone through this year. The one guy I've been critical of is Dan Skillings. Okay. I just didn't like that he was a guy who tested out the NBA waters after the 23-24 season at Cincinnati. Decided to come back and play for a Cincinnati team that had plenty of hopes going into this past season. He was chief among those big hopes. And it just didn't work. He was benched in January and never got his starting role back. Like, he lost his role on that team as one of the veterans on a team that had plenty of potential and absolutely 1,000% did not live up to it. A team that was in the top 20 going into the conference schedule and didn't even make the NCAA tournament. That's a big deal. Okay, Dan Skillings was getting benched and doing TikToks. And that's what all the Cincinnati fans said in the mentions. Like, have fun with him when he starts doing his TikToks. I don't think I'm totally old school, but I'm not going to lie. I don't love seeing TikToks when the team's not doing very well. And I'm guessing Cincinnati fans were like that too. Dan Skillings has showed up and showed out in this FISU World University Games. And look, take that for what it's worth. You know, they're playing Romania. They're playing guys who are nowhere near Big 12 caliber. Okay, they're playing against the Marino Dubrovciches of the world, and we know Marino Dubrovcic is not of Big 12 caliber. Okay, we know that. So outside of Michael Ratai playing for Germany, there's just not a lot of major college basketball talent. So take it with a grain of salt. But Dan Skillings has not only been excellent in this tournament, and in this last game, he combined again for 16 points, 9 rebounds, 3 of them on the offensive end. Like, that is, he's a guy who could ball handle like a guard and can rebound like a power forward. And that's what you need. That's what he is at his best. And that's really what you need. But the other thing that's kind of taking me with Dan Skillings is the fact that he played 30 minutes. He's played 30 minutes twice in these 3 games. Baylor's rotated in like all 12 guys into this lineup, and Dan Skillings is the one who's playing the most minutes. Only he and Obi Agbim played 30 minutes in this game. So not just that he's scoring and he's rebounding, but that Scott Drew is treating him like the horse, like one of his starters. In fact, I thought like this week that Cam Carr was going to start, Dan Skillings was going to come off the bench. The way Scott Drew is using him in this tournament means he's probably going to be a starter. Like the stats and the numbers and the shooting percentage and that, like that, all that you need to take with a grain of salt. But in terms of the usage, this is Scott Drew saying, here's the guys that I want to be my horses this year. Here's what I'm looking at for a starting five. And the guys who play 25 plus minutes, Cam Carr does, Obi Agbim does, and Dan Skillings does. 20-minute guys, you add Caden Powell, who I think will be at least a 20-minute guy in the regular season. Isaac Williams. Talk about a name to keep an eye on. This kid out of nowhere from A&M Corpus. And the other 20-minute guy was someone who does not play for Baylor. So that doesn't count. But Baylor, in terms of the guys that are rolling out there, it's Dan Skillings, it's Obi Agbim, it's Cam Carr. And those are the guys who come in with Big 12 experience, Dan Skillings. All conference first team kind of player, Obi Agbim. One of the best guys on the transfer market this year. And a guy who came in with a ton of potential out of high school, 4 or 5-star guy who hasn't realized it yet in Cam Carr. Those are 3 guys you're looking to be in your starting lineup day one. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I just didn't think that about Dan Skillings. And maybe he is a starting lineup and that's a bad thing in the long term, but there is a Dan Skillings that was playing for Cincinnati a couple years ago that had legit NBA draft potential, that had legit all Big 12 potential with the numbers that he had, and was a starter for a muck it up Cincinnati team as one of the only guys with real skill. No pun intended. So if Dan Skillings can get back to that, are we talking about a different outlook on this Baylor team? Here's where I have to toe a fine line, guys, because obviously I don't want to be up here saying, oh, here comes Baylor. They're going to be a top 3 team in this conference now because Dan Skillings is doing well at the FISU World University Games. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take the positives here and look at them and maybe try to contextualize my thinking more than change my thinking. But Dan Skillings right now, he's looking like someone that Scott Drew's really going to rely on. And therefore, all of us are going to rely on him. Perhaps our mental health will be tied into how Dan Skillings does in the Big 12 schedule. But you can't help but like what you see so far. It's not the competition they'll be playing in the Big 12, but it has been physical as holy hell. So that's a good preparer for the Big 12 schedule. Let me know what you guys think about Dan Skillings, Cam Carr, Obi Agbim, who had another big game. We're going to talk about him more in just a minute. But let me know what you think about this team so far. And is it changing your mind a little bit? Don't get too crazy, but is it changing your mind a little bit? Let me know in the comment section below or find us on Twitter, X, at Locked On Baylor. You can tweet at us there. Locked On Baylor rolls on. We will talk about some more of the projections on this team. Who's going to be the leading scorer for Scott Drew's mighty Baylor Bears in 2025-26? That is coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, we've got another proud sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network, and specifically us here at Baylor. That is Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can be that. It can be easier. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, which gives you full visibility and control over your finances. If you offer me a personal CFO for free, I'd say, yeah, I'm in. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. And if you're managing money with a partner, it's easier than ever. Like you guys can just have your shared and personal accounts all in the same place. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDON, COLLEGE, for half off your first year. Running it back, Locked On Baylor. final segment of the day. We've talked about this Baylor basketball team going into the FISU World University Games into the knockout rounds undefeated. Boy, wouldn't it be awesome to see this team capture the gold medal, maybe beat Germany in the gold medal game. Michael Ratai gets a medal around his neck too. But I warned in the last segment, like let's not jump to these huge conclusions here. This is not Big 12 basketball. Okay. It's a nice little level of competition, but it's not what you're going to be facing day in, day out amongst Power 4 teams, and certainly not in the Big 12, the best college basketball conference in the US of A. But it's okay to take positives from this. Lord knows I'm doing it. Okay, maybe it's because it's the summer and we don't have a lot going on. And it's tough to do a show 5 days a week in the middle of July when you're only talking about Baylor. But I'm taking the positives from it. And I want to pose a question early this year, and I will ask it again before the season starts. I want to pose this question early, a question that we've seen each of the last 2 seasons and I've had a hard time answering. That is before the year, asking who's going to be the leading scorer for this team. Okay, last year I had no idea. Like literally no idea. 2 years ago, I probably would have said Jalen Bridges, which I think ended up being correct, but I didn't think Eve Misi was going to be the player that he was. Jacoby Walter might have been in that conversation as well, 15, 16 points a game. Last year, I was like, Norchadomir, I guess, who might have ended up being their leading scorer. But this year, I wonder if the roles are more defined, because my July the 22nd, Chase Campbell Day, my July the 22nd prediction on who Baylor's leading scorer is going to be in the 25-26 season is Obi Agbim. Obi Agbim, I think, is going to be the leading scorer for Baylor. Couple different reasons. First off, he is the best three-point shooter by percentage. I think JJ White could end up being the best three-point shooter on this team just because Obi's going to be handling the ball a lot as a point guard. But he's a guy who averaged 18 points a game last year as a all Mountain West player, newcomer of the year. Certainly could put up 15 or more in the Big 12 with his shooting ability. I think that's possible. It's kind of like what we saw from Jacoby Walter. Like he was a good enough shooter, streaky, sure, but good enough shooter to get to that 15 points a game. But this was not as easy as I just laid it out. Like it is, to me, the answer is Obi Agbim. But Michael Ratai is going to put a hell of a push there. Okay. I did a crossover with Locked On College Basketball and Andy Patton, who's seen a lot of Michael Ratai play. It's going to come out later this week. Andy Patton has seen him play a lot, and he has really high praise for Michael Ratai. You're going to have to check out that episode because he has a bold prediction for Michael Ratai, who's coming from Oregon State. But he was a 17-8 guy last year and had a 30-piece against Gonzaga. Like this kid can fill it up, and he shoots 35% from three. I think he's going to be playing a lot of inside out for the Bears this year. Like they don't really have a power forward kind of guy. They have guys with power forward height who played guard like Ratai, like Dan Skillings. But I just think there's a world where this offense really opens up for Michael Ratai in a Jalen Bridges kind of way. And I think people kind of forget about this, but towards the tail end of the 23-24 season, like Jalen Bridges was a legit, like half the season, he was an first team, all Big 12 kind of player. And he was Baylor's best player down the stretch in that season. And it's a season that should have gone longer than it did. They shouldn't have lost to Clemson in the second round. I see a lot of Jalen Bridges and Michael Ratai. My worry is it took Bridges a while. That first year was really up and down, and I would say mostly down. That second year was very up. But it took a while to kind of find his footing. With Michael Ratai, you don't have that kind of time. He's a one-year guy. You just don't have that kind of time. So I think it's not crazy to see Obi Agbim and Ratai both at around that 15, 16 points a game. And let the rest of the chips fall as they may. I think there's going to be good depth on this team. Whether it's good depth or all depth kind of remains to be seen. But I have it as Obi Agbim with Michael Ratai just right behind him. And then you got to think about Tonda Yesufu, which is a name I have not said in this podcast yet. But I think he's more of a VJ Edgecombe, 12 to 15 points a game, which probably has him second or third on that list of Baylor's leading scorers this year. Let me know what you guys think, though. Let me know in the comments below. Who's your leading scorer? What would you have done with Memphis? How are you feeling about this FISU World University Championships? Let me know in the comments section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Still about 50% of you are not subscribed to the channel. We're bringing you Baylor and obviously Big 12 news 5 days a week. We're the only place that's doing that that's not directly affiliated with Baylor University. It's just Baylor. It's just Big 12. So get your comments in, like, subscribe, find us on Twitter, find us wherever you find your podcast, and let me thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you tomorrow on another episode of your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.